Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over an interesting topic I saw in the AP, which is that the California governor Gavin Newsom is trying to rebrand himself ahead of a potential 2028 presidential run. The article begins by saying Gavin Newsom hosts President Trump's allies on his podcast. He's pushing city officials to crack down on homeless encampments, and this week he proposed limiting healthcare coverage for immigrants in the country illegally. Make no mistake, California's Democratic governor is appealing to the political center and trying to shed his national reputation as a San Francisco liberal as he contemplates his next career move. With the earliest phase of the 2028 presidential election season already underway, the term-limited Newsom has been increasingly willing to break from some of the policies that have defined his brand and his deeply Democratic state. His moves could attract Democratic voters fearful that their next nominee might appear to be too liberal, but also threaten to alienate key parts of the party's diverse coalition. On Wednesday, Newsom was asked if he was moving to the center in anticipation of a presidential run. He said, "I've been always a hard-headed pragmatist." The 57-year-old told reporters, reporting to his time as San Francisco mayor when he expanded the city's police department and backed an ordinance cracking down on panhandling. He explained that his evolving policy platform was driven by a need to be fiscally responsible. Already, some Democrats who will be influential in the next primary are skeptical. "He's trying to moderate some, good for him for trying," said Boyd Brown, a veteran Democratic operative in South Carolina. "But I think that the die's been cast on Gavin Newsom's political aspirations, or on Gavin Newsom's political positions." Norman Solomon, a national director for the progressive group Roots Action, accused Newsom of being willing to throw basic decency under the 2028 campaign bus. Newsom is well on his way to self-satire as a former liberal who's so obsessed with becoming president that he develops a reflex of punching down at immigrants, the homeless, farm workers, people living paycheck to paycheck, Solomon said. And it goes into some policy. Pointing to the state's $12 billion deficit, Newsom has come out with a plan to stop immigrants living in the country illegally from joining California's taxpayer-funded health care program for the poor. Those already receiving benefits and children who qualify would not be affected. Last year, California was one of the first states to extend free healthcare benefits to all poor adults regardless of their immigration status. It was an ambitious plan promoted by Newsom to help the nation's most populous state inch closer to universal healthcare. He reiterated support for the program as recently as March. But the cost ultimately ran to $2.7 billion, more than Newsom anticipated. Despite the proposed change, the governor made clear he still broadly supports providing health care to immigrants and lacking permanent legal status. No state has done more than the state of California. No state will continue to do more than the state of California by a long shot, and that's a point of pride, he said. This week, Newsom offered California cities a blueprint to clear homeless encampments. It was an escalation in his effort to force local officials to address the makeshift tents that line underpasses, parks, and streets across the state. "No more excuses," he said. "It's time to take back the streets." Newsom earlier this year stunned members of his own party by agreeing with podcast guests on issues such as restricting transgender women and girls in sports. He said dismantling police departments was lunacy and kept silent when longtime Trump ally Steve Bannon falsely said Trump won the 2020 presidential election against Democrat Joe Biden. About 7 in 10 Democrats oppose allowing transgender athletes to participate in women's sports, according to a January New York Times Ipsos poll. And Democratic leaders of cities have long faced concerns about homelessness and illegal immigration, issues that Trump highlighted frequently during his 2024 campaign. Brown, the South Carolina operative, noted that the party's last presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, was defeated in part because Trump's campaign spent millions of dollars highlighting the policies she embraced as California's senator and in a previous run before she replaced Biden at the top of the 2024 ticket. Brown said, "We already tried the California thing." In New Hampshire, former Democrat House Speaker Steve Shurtleff agreed that it may be too late for Newsom to change his brand. "It's almost oversteering. He's trying too hard to come towards the middle," Shurtleff said. "Before you can be true to the electorate, you got to be true to yourself." Matt Bennett of the centrist Democratic group Third Way praised Newsom, however. Bennett noted that Democratic primary voters may lean left, but they have a long track record of picking moderate presidential nominees based on the notion that the candidate is more electable in a general election. He said, quote, "We will date a liberal, but we will marry the moderate every time," Bennett said, arguing that every Democratic nominee going back to Bill Clinton in 1992 was viewed as a moderate. "I think what Gavin Newsom is doing is moving into the center, and we think that's smart." Third Way is chaired by Rachel Pritzker, a relative of the other potential 2028 contender, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Lastly, inside Newsom's thinking, Newsom's allies acknowledge that he faces significant challenges should he run in 2028. He has just a year and a half to make progress on California's most pressing issues: homelessness, crime, climate challenge, and immigration among them. Climate change, facing a major budget deficit, he may have limited options. Some supporters believe that building out his national brand is critical, so they have launched a sustained effort to do that. As recently as this past weekend, Newsom's Political Action Committee ran ads on Fox News attacking Trump's trade policies. Newsom put up billboards across 7 states last fall condemning the GOP's anti-abortion bans. And over the spring, he established a website to combat misinformation from Trump and his allies. Newsom also has his podcast, which recently featured major figures from Trump's Make America Great Again movement, including Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. Matt Willem, who chairs the New Hampshire House Democratic Caucus, took the middle ground on Newsom, saying he appreciated the governor's communicating early and often across a variety of platforms. I hope Governor Newsom makes his way back to New Hampshire in the coming months, not just to speak but also to listen. He said granted staters still have a lot to learn about Governor Newsom and vice versa. So this is obviously a very interesting development, and the worst kept secret in politics is that Gavin Newsom is going to be running for president in 2028. Without a doubt, it's going to be happening. In the current polling averages thus far, though, Gavin Newsom is currently sitting around 5th place. In the averages that include Kamala Harris, Newsom sits with about 6.8% of the vote, a decent starting point, but far behind Harris at 28%, and even farther behind Buttigieg at 14.3%, AOC at 11.5%, and about a point back of Cory Booker at 7.8%. The only poll that was taken where Kamala Harris did not run had Buttigieg at 17, AOC 14, Booker 14, Newsom would then be at 10%. So Newsom goes up to 4th place in that regard. But Newsom is seeing probably the polling right now and knowing this primary is going to be very interesting because the Democrats are kind of in a situation similar to the Republicans in 2016. They can either do a few things in 2028. Kamala Harris lost the election. They can say she wasn't far left enough and can go even further to the left. That's likely going to be the AOC lane if she runs for president, trying to go more to the Democratic side. Another lane could be running it back with a lot of the same policies from Kamala Harris, but maybe presenting the messaging in a different way. That, I think, would be the Kamala Harris-Pete Buttigieg lane, where maybe if Harris doesn't run, Buttigieg probably supports 95% of the same issues that Kamala Harris does, but he may be able to better resonate with people and articulate them and have more time to articulate them than Harris did. Newsom's in a tough spot where he's not going to be able to go farther to the left than AOC, but he's probably not going to want to be able to support the same issues as Harris did and get the same amount of support as Pete Buttigieg probably has that lane right now. Newsom's best bet politically might honestly be what he's trying to do, which is try and moderate on some issues, and as the primary goes on, hoping other Democrats will try and take each other out, and then it comes a 2020 Joe Biden situation where Newsom is the last high name ID candidate left standing, where he'll be seen as the establishment Democrat going up against the far left AOC, and then maybe Pete Buttigieg has lost some support to Newsom or something like that. That might be the move Newsom's doing. But it's going to be interesting because we saw in the 2024 election that Kamala Harris did lose to Donald Trump 312 to 226. And even though the margins of victory were close in a lot of the battleground states, Trump did very well electorally. Trump made a lot of large gains when you compare the past election results. Trump gained in every single state in the country. The only place he didn't gain was Nebraska's 1st congressional district. Everywhere else, Trump gained, including in key swing states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I think Gavin Newsom knows going farther to the left in 2028, if 2024 was any indicator, going farther to the left probably isn't going to get a lot of these voters that voted for Trump more in 2024 than they did in 2020. It's probably not going to get a lot of these Rust Belt voters, especially, back to the Democrat side. Now, that's not a given. It's possible with 4 years of Trump being president, if Trump is doing poorly and the economy is doing poorly, running someone farther to the left of Trump may actually not even matter if Trump is so unpopular. But currently, Trump's approval rating is currently sitting around 47%, which has gone up in the past few days or so. That would put Trump, if the election were held today, in a pretty decent position where J.D. Vance, if he's the Republican nominee, would probably win the election if it were held today. But I think Newsom knows that the best path for him politically and potentially for the Democrats in 2028 is moderating on a lot of these issues and then trying to get some of these more moderate voters, independent voters in the Rust Belt and maybe in states like Nevada, Arizona, and North Carolina and Georgia back to the Democrat side. Will it work? Well, that's the question. We're still 3 years out or so. We're really not going to have a good idea of 2028 until probably early 2027. We'll get an idea of how Trump and the Trump administration is doing and being viewed. But right now, you're starting to see the steps Newsom is making and trying to get himself more towards the middle. Newsom is more preparing for the general election, less so than the Democratic primary, but by trying to moderate, may also be trying to set himself up for a lane in the Democratic primary, which is going to have a far left candidate, a candidate that's kind of in between the far left and being a establishment Democrat. Newsom, I think, is trying to get that moderate establishment Democrat lane. That's my best guess right now. But leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. I can't wait to check that all out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did, and hope to see you in a future video.